Hello, welcome to Actualol. I'm John Perkis. Today I'm doing a vlog about my top 20 most anticipated games coming out at Essen Spiel. I'm lucky enough to be going there next week, so these are the games I'm getting really excited about. I'm also going to be hosting a little meetup there with the guys from No Pun Included, so if you are coming to Essen and you'd like to hang out, then check out the other video I've posted for more details about that. And number 20 is a little party game called Caribou Camp. Now this list has a few party games on it, mostly because I love party games, but also because I find from the descriptions in the Essen preview on Board Game Geek that the party games are the easiest to understand. They're the easiest to read and go, oh, okay, I think I would like that game. I find it a lot harder to read the slightly dull description of a Euro game and understand whether it's going to be enjoyable to me. So Caribou Camp is a game that sounds a lot like a party game I love called Wink. In Caribou Camp, you have a secret partnership. You're trying to collect cards, and then once you've completed a set, you have to gesture to the person on your team secretly so that no one else notices. So you might have to wink at them, but you also might have to be doing other facial gestures, things like that. But the crucial thing is that you have to do it when nobody else is looking. And that's what I love about Wink. So if Caribou Camp can bring something new to that and add in these other facial gestures, and maybe a slightly different game mechanism in the collecting of cards, then I'm definitely intrigued. That's Caribou Camp from Gigamic. And number 19 is Motion Pictures Movies Out of Cardboard from DrawLab Entertainment. This is a deck building game about making movies. And that theme is what has got me here. I love the theme of movie making. I really enjoyed the networks from this year, which is about making TV. I don't love deck building as a mechanism, so that's kind of turning me off, and they haven't put out really enough information or any artwork about this game to get me more excited, which is why it's only at number 19 on this list. And number 18 is Picassimo, which is a party drawing game from Haber. Now, I love party drawing games. Check out my 5 alternatives to Pictionary to see games that I really love, and I'm always looking for something new. In this game, you draw something on a whiteboard, but the whiteboard has removable tiles that you then move around to jumble up the image so that when the person guesses, they can't see what you originally drew. That sounds interesting. I'm not 100% convinced that this won't feel a bit samey every time you play it. And also, I feel like it might, just from the pictures I've seen, I feel like it might be incredibly difficult. But I'm definitely willing to check this one out and see if Picassimo can bring something new to the party drawing genre. And number 17 is Gamsh Alpin from Zoc Verlag, which is a publisher that's on this list a few times. They make some really interesting sounding games. This is a very simple short card game where you play in teams, and at the start of the game you create a secret code with your team partner, and when you collect your sets and get to the point where you can score points, you have to communicate to each other with this secret gesture. But if the other players spot your secret code, then you're caught out, you don't get the points. So this reminds me of Caribou Camp, which is earlier on the list, but I just love team games, and I love this idea of having to try to communicate with each other without everyone else noticing. And number 16 is a game called Ha, which is from Tiefe Editions. This is a party game, similar to Time's Up, where you're trying to get people to guess maybe a famous person or a movie or something. But in this game, the twist is that you want as few people as possible to guess the right answer. You have to get one person to guess it, but you get more points if it's just one person or just 2 out of maybe 10 people. So that's a really interesting twist on what, I love Time's Up, that kind of game. So something that kind of brings a new tactic to it, where you have to be very specific in your clues and keep them quite guarded, but make sure that one person gets it. That's just really interesting. So I look forward to trying out Ha from Tiefe Editions. And number 15 is Fold It from Happy Baobab, and this is a really interesting speed game where everyone has a big cloth which just has a big grid with loads of pictures of food on plates. And the idea of the game is that you turn over a card which has like an order on it, and then you have to create that order by folding your piece of cloth into a way that you can show the meals on that order, and you have to do it in the fastest time possible. What an interesting, completely unique game. I'm always looking for stuff that kind of brings something new to the party game genre, and this seems to do it. So that's Fold It. Can't wait to try it. At number 14, I've actually put two games, Tifa, Taschen and Gentleman's Deal, which are very similar sounding negotiation party games. The idea being that one person for a round has a bunch of money and they have to divvy it up between the other players. They have to decide how much to give out and how much to keep for themselves. Then the other players have to decide whether they accept that offer or whether they reject it and then maybe ultimately depose the king and make someone new king. I really like that mechanism. It reminds me of a game I have called Junta Viva el Presidente. I just think it brings an interesting dynamic, having to decide how greedy you want to be or whether you want to be this generous dictator so you can remain dictator. I'm not sure which of these games I'm going to get. Hopefully I can try both of them, but it's definitely an interesting short party game, and I don't have something that plays in quite this shorter length that offers this kind of dynamic, so I'm really interested to check these out. And number 13 is Dreams, also from Zoc Verlag. And this is a game that seems inspired by a game I love called A Fake Artist Goes to New York, where everyone's drawing cooperatively and one player doesn't know what they're drawing and has to try and stay hidden. In Dreams, there's 4 cards face up on the table that everyone can see, but everyone except for one player knows which one they're supposed to be drawing. Except you're not drawing in this game. You're actually building a map of sort of stars, this constellation on a night sky. You have these little gems that you're putting down. I'm slightly unconvinced as to how the staying hidden will work in this game. There's only 4 images that it could be from, and the fake artist, or however you want to call him, can see all 4 of them. So it feels like it's only a 1 in 4 chance of guessing the right one. But it looks like a really interesting take on a fake artist. I love the idea of placing these gems in this kind of abstract art. So I have to check this one out. I just hope it can pull it off. That's Dreams from Zoc Verlag. And number 12 is Glimpse from Legend Express, which is a party game where one player is wearing these coloured glasses so they can't see colour, and they're looking at a lineup of people and the other players have to try and lead them towards a specific character. Now this reminds me of a game called Unusual Suspects, which I really enjoy, and it's a party game where one person's trying to get the rest of the group to pick one particular character. They're answering yes or no questions. And the criticism of that game is it can lead to racial profiling or gender or age profiling because you're having to make judgments based on just first impressions. Now, Glimpse almost seems like a political statement about that game because you're looking at these images with you're colorblind to these images. So that in itself just brings something completely new and fascinating. It also, I think, makes the guessing and the clue giving a bit more involved because it talks about singing and miming and dancing and other things. So I'm intrigued about taking Unusual Suspects and maybe making a bit more of a kind of flamboyant party game out of it. So I'm really excited to try Glimpse from Legend Express. And number 11 is Mea Culpa, which is the third game from Zoc Verlag. And this is a more involved game with a really interesting theme. It's about sinning. You are doing sinful acts and collecting sin that are taking you towards hell. But the reason that you're doing some of these acts is to collect these letters of indulgence that at the end of the game will ultimately pardon you so that you're able to atone for this life of greed and lust as it describes in the game's description. That theme, I really like a game that has a humour to it and just kind of creates a story that no other game is doing. And it sounds like it's got this really interesting balance where you're having to collect all this sin to be able to get these letters of indulgence. But if you take it too far, then you'll be screwed. You won't be able to sort of come back in the other direction. You won't be able to be pardoned enough. And number 10 is When I Dream from Drawlab Entertainment. And this is an interesting party game where one person has got their eyes closed, everyone else is looking at these art cards and trying to describe them with just one word. But there are hidden roles. Some players are good spirits trying to describe the thing properly so that the dreamer can guess it properly, and others are naughty spirits trying to throw them off. But the naughty spirits can't push themselves too far because then if they throw them off with their first clue, then with the next card, the dreamer won't trust them. They won't listen to their clues anymore, so they won't have any more influence over the dreamer and won't be able to get any points. I feel like this has a really interesting balance with the kind of clues you give and reminds me of trying to stay hidden like in Spyfall or Fake Artist, which are two party games I really love. The game has really beautiful looking artwork. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about is There's this storytelling element that where the dreamer is then supposed to tell the story of the dream that they had before they open their eyes. This just feels a little bit tacked on. I'm not sure of the benefit of it to do with the game mechanisms, but it's possible you could just leave it out anyway. Really interested to try this. I feel like it could be a really unique party game. That's When I Dream. And number 9 is Cottage Garden from Spiel. And this is designed by Uwe Rosenberg and looks incredibly similar to his brilliant 2-player game Patchwork. In Patchwork, you're putting together these Tetris-like puzzle pieces to create a patchwork quilt. And in Cottage Garden, you're doing the same, but you're creating a garden with all these flower beds. This goes to 4 players, so immediately I'm just intrigued. If this is Patchwork but goes to 4 players, I don't need to know anything else. I want to buy it, I want to play it, I think that I'm going to love it. So that's Cottage Garden, and number 9. And number 8 is Last Friday, which is at Essen from Heidelberger Spieleverlag, but coming out soon in English from Ares Games. This is a hidden movement game based on a slasher flick. I don't love horror films, but I do actually really love that theme for a board game because I love the idea of being hunted. And in this game, one person plays as the serial killer trying to hunt these campers, and the campers are trying to sort of run away, but also sometimes I think trying to kill the serial killer. So this is a new take on games that I love, like Letters from Whitechapel or Fury of Dracula. And this game has different phases. I think at one point the killer's hunting the campers, but then another point the campers hunting the killers. So I love the theme, I love this general mechanism, so I'm really looking forward to trying out Last Friday. And number 7 is Mission Impractical from Venerod Forlag. And this is a really interesting party game where one player is on a secret mission. They're assigned a mission out of 4 that everyone can see on the table. So let's say, example, that they have to visit the in-laws or jump out of a plane. Nobody else knows which mission they've been assigned. They have to try and get it across to the other players by picking certain items to take on that mission. So they might take a motorcycle helmet or a trampoline or whatever. And so based on their decisions, the other players then have to guess which mission it is that they're going on. But they don't just guess, they also have to tell the story of how they would use those items to tackle that specific mission. So it's got this element of a kind of snake oil or fun employed game where each player is having to try and do their little pitch, tell their little story. But it also has the brilliant elements of sort of Mysterium, where one player is trying to communicate stuff to the rest of the group through only sort of very simple ideas. The combination, Mysterium, Snake Oil, it's got a bit of concept, Deception in Murder Hong Kong, all of those games I really, really love. And this just sounds like a really cool, interesting take with a lot of fun discussion at the table. And number 6 is Junkart from Pretzel Games. And this is a dexterity stacking game that reminds me a lot of Bandu, which was actually a game that I didn't love, where you're building up these wooden blocks. Junkart seems to take that, but with slightly easier pieces to stack, because that was one of my problems with Bandu. And also it has a lot of different game modes where there's cards involved. And so it feels like if you don't like one way to play the game, there's going to be another way to play the game. It's really beautiful to look at. It's also quite expensive. It's very similar to Pretzel Games' other game, Flick 'em Up, in that respect. But I definitely love the idea of stacking games, and from all the reviews I've seen, I think this one really gets it right. So that's Junkart from Pretzel Games. And number 5 is London Dredd from Grey Fox Games. This is a cooperative game with a horror theme, and it's set in Victorian era London with a bit of supernatural stuff going on as well. I'm always looking for games to play at Halloween, really good horror games, so that's something that's really intrigued me about this game. But it also has a timed element and programming element to this game. So within the timed section of the game, you're having to program actions that you'll then resolve later. And that reminds me of a game that I really enjoyed the pressure of, which is Space Alert from Czech Games Edition. So I love cooperative games, I love working together with other players and talking. I love time games, especially when the time pressure is very much on the decisions you make rather than just the kind of dexterity-like actions that you're having to do, maybe in a lot of the dice-chucking real-time games. So if London Dredd can combine that kind of pressure on decisions, also with some great horror theme. I love that it's set in London because that's where I'm set, and I'm always looking for a game to play at Halloween, then I think London Dredd is going to be a game for me. And number 4 is Pandemic Iberia. This is a game that takes one of my favourite games of all time, Pandemic, and tries to do something new with it. This is co-designed by Jesus Torres Castro along with Matt Leacock, the original Pandemic designer, who designed Watson and Holmes, which is a game that I really love from last year's Essen. This is completely different, but it's set in a historical time period, and it's about treating and curing specific historical diseases like typhus and cholera. That is something I really like. I like the idea of bringing more kind of factual or historical stuff to the pandemic theme, because I always felt like they could have done a bit more with the diseases that you're curing and things like that. It also involves developing railways and purifying water that's obviously historically accurate. So I'm intrigued as to how that plays out and whether it really enhances the theme. The artwork looks amazing, so if this is just pandemic with a bit more of a theme and great artwork, then I'm on board. And number 3 is Raise Your Goblets, which is out at Essen in German from Heidelberger Spiele Verlag, but is coming out in English from Cool Mini or Not soon. And this is a party game where everyone has a plastic goblet and you're at a medieval banquet and you're trying to poison someone. You have a target that you're trying to kill, and you can do things like swap around cups, put in poison, put in antidotes, and you can also raise a toast. And when everyone has to drink, if you have more poison in your goblet than antidote, you die. There's actually public information as to who wants to kill who. That's kind of interesting. I'm not sure how that will work. But I really love a party game that tries to bring a sense of spectacle. Cash and Guns is really popular because of those foam guns. And I feel like the theme of this and the plastic goblets is really going to elevate this game. So as long as the mechanisms are cool, I think this could be a really cool party game. That's Raise Your Goblets. And number 2 is Insider from Oink Games. And they are the publisher that brought us A Fake Artist Goes to New York, which is a brilliant game that I've already spoken about on this list. The Insider sounds a bit similar. In this game, the master has a secret word. The insider knows that secret word, but the master doesn't know who the insider is out of all the other players. The other players, including the insider, now ask the master yes or no questions, trying to work out what the word is. After 5 minutes, they have to guess what that word is. Now, the master then has an opportunity to guess who the insider is. And if he guesses the insider, then he wins with the other players and the insider fails. So the insider is trying to get the other players with the questions that he's asking. He's trying to lead them towards the word, but without leading them such that they work out that that's what he's doing. It's a bit complicated to explain, but I think it's going to be really interesting to play. I can't wait to try this one out. That's Insider. And number 1 is Dream Home from Rebel and Asmodee. This is a game about building your dream home. You're picking up cards that represent rooms. You're trying to add things to your house and build the best home, really, and get the most points. This seems like quite a light game. I'm always looking for games that kind of fit that gateway level to introduce people to the hobby. The artwork is brilliant, and for me, the theme is just something I'm really interested in. To me, living in London, playing a game where you get to live in a home and have whatever you want in that home is as fantastical as playing a game with dragons in it. The theme grabs me, the artwork looks wonderful, and I'm just intrigued by a very simple game that hopefully is great to play. That's my number 1, Dream Home. Those are my top 20 most anticipated games coming out Essen Spiel 2016. I put links to all the games in the description of this video. If you're going to Essen, then do check out my other video about the meetup that I'm doing with the guys from No Pun Included. I'd love to meet some of you, maybe have a chat, play a game, so check that video out. If you like this video, then please check out the other videos on this channel, maybe subscribe. I'm Actualol on Facebook and Twitter. I'm John Perkis. Thanks for watching.